Hi, thanks for joining us today. My name is Nancy Barkus, and I'm with Agriculture Future of America. I'm excited today to visit with USDA as AFA and USDA are looking for continued ways to increase our partnership opportunities and bring exposure and experiences to young men and women looking to careers in the food and agriculture industry. USDA is certainly important in the way we carry out our business each day, and there's a lot of great career paths that can be found within USDA and to help move our industry forward. USDA has some very exciting news to share by which young people can engage with the agency across the nation. And it's my pleasure to be here today and introduce Chris Young. Chris serves as the Deputy Chief of Staff for the USDA. In that role, he leads the day-to-day and external-facing operations of the Secretary's office, including partnerships and public engagement, congressional relations and intergovernmental affairs, communications, scheduling in advance, events and logistics, and security. He also directs the overall department's administrative units to meet the Secretary's vision of the best managed, most efficient, most customer-focused agency in the government. With that, I'd love to have Chris share some of this exciting news that the agency has to share.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy. Hello, everybody. A belated Happy New Year wherever you're listening in across this wonderful country. I hope all of you are well, and I hope that your 2018 is off to a good start. Probably a cold start unless you're maybe out on the West Coast, but I hope everyone's well. So Nancy said we have a lot of good news to share with you, and I'm going to go over just a few things in brief form, and then Nancy and I are going to have some questions and answers that'll hopefully put a little bit more flesh on things for you. But to start, let me back up, and I think that's the best way to start. When the Secretary took office almost a year ago as our nation's 31st Secretary of Agriculture, he made it abundantly clear to all of us who work on his team that he views young people not only as the agricultural future, but he views them as the agricultural present. That sometimes we get so focused on the tomorrow that we forget about the today. And so we are putting a lot of emphasis on the today. How do we liaise with, work with, find nexus points with and among young people who have an interest in agriculture? And let me stop and press pause just for a moment. And when I say agriculture, I mean exactly what AFA has talked about for a long time. You don't have to go into production agriculture to be an agriculturalist. Now you can, and that's wonderful. If you want to raise row crops, if you want to be a rancher, that's absolutely terrific. But those who are in R&D, those who want to go into applied research, those who want to go in agribusiness, those who want to go in ag law or policy and lobbying, those sorts of things, those who want to go in ag communications, those who want to go in food safety and nutrition, forestry, all of these things form the big, larger web of agriculture. And it's very important for us to invest in those individuals who in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years are going to be taking the mantles and running with them. And so he really put us on a direction, of course, to study what was happening at USDA and figure out how we could do it even better. And what we found was simple. We had a lot of good programs, but we didn't have a centralized repository of those programs. We didn't have a centralized effort at USDA to join with organizations like Manners, like 4-H, like FFA, and of course like AFA, that put a face forward of who these young men and women are and how we could work with them. And so over the course of the summer and into the early fall, we brainstormed lots of different options, and we thought about how could we coalesce these programs. And in October, the Secretary announced the creation of a new office called the Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement. You may hear me refer to it as OPPE as its acronym. Essentially, what this does is take all of our programs to special communities of interest across the United States, and put them under one umbrella, not to make the programs homogenous, but to lend structure, stability, and direction and strategy to those programs. So that if a program in the farm production side is doing something and a program in food safety is doing something that's geared toward youth, they have the same strategic overlay, the same thought about how to go about it, to making sure that all of our resources are equitably distributed among among the many various agencies and places that we could look. Part of this OPP effort is to youth and new and beginning farmers. Many of you have already seen the name Lilia McFarland, and you'll see it again and again. Lilia directs our efforts with youth and new and beginning farmers coming over from the Farm Service Agency. She's a Texan. She's absolutely terrific and stellar, and you'll be seeing a lot of communication from her in the future. But it's all well and fine to have an office, but if the office doesn't do anything, what's the point? It's just, it's just lip service. It's just putting glossy makeup on something instead of really substantively working with people where they need to be, or where they are, I should say. And so we're going to announce and share with you today a few short-term initiatives that are going to be long-term initiatives, and then tell you how excited we are to develop new things. One of the things that we realized straight away is that the USDA had an abundance of wonderful internship programs. But what we didn't necessarily have was a set of internship programs across the entire department that were really focused on those who wanted to go into agriculture. Anyone could apply, and that's great. And we're going to keep those internship programs for people who just want a DC experience, or graduate students who are looking for a job that's convertible, a pathways program that's convertible into a job. There are all kinds of wonderful opportunities like that that are out there, and those are still going to be there. But we are creating a special new internship program at USDA called One USDA. And these internships will be spread across all of the department and across all of our geography that we cover within the United States. They will be in every corner, every state. They will be in every mission area, from food safety to food and nutrition and consumer science to rural development, farm production, trade, you name it, and including the Secretary's office, communications, congressional relations, intergovernmental affairs, policy shop. All of those places will have interns. And that internship is focused on those individuals like yourselves who not only are interested in agriculture as a career, whatever that might be, but who have throughout their high school and collegiate careers shown a commitment and a dedication to agriculture, ag leadership, leadership in general, ag communications and communications in general, and the work ethic that all ties it together. And so those persons who are competitively selected at AFA would be prime candidates for this particular track of internships. And again, let me stress, there are multiple tracks of internships. They're all going to be there. But this is particularly focused on those of you who really want to go into agriculture in some way, shape, or form. The applications go live January 22nd for the summer term. They'll be open a week. And after that week, they will begin the evaluation process just like any normal HR evaluation process. These are paid internships, and the pay will be between a GS2 and a GS5 level, depending on one's qualifications and where one is located. And they'll be all over the spectrum. When you go into the application, you will have to upload a cover letter and a resume and an unofficial transcript. And let me stress to you the importance of an unofficial transcript. Once you hit send and it's closed, if you don't have that unofficial transcript there, your application is incomplete and you cannot go back in and add it later. If you are hired as an intern, you will be asked for an official transcript to complete your file. And then we'll begin the process of interviews, of reviewing the applications, those sorts of things. And we hope by late February to have decisions out for the summer, which will allow all the students to have certainty in planning their summer activities, and then of course their fall activities, their semesters as they go along. We'll rinse and repeat the process for fall come April, and for spring and summer of 19 around September we'll do it. So this is going to be an every semester internship program. And how many are we talking? Well, literally every rural development state office, every NRCS or soil conservation, every farm service agency office, state office, all of those can have an intern in them. Not to mention here in headquarters, so it literally could be 200 to 300 internships that are available, if not a little bit more. Now, the only reason I can't give you an exact number is because we might not have somebody apply for a certain internship. Because when you go into the application, you'll be able to toggle and select geographically. Maybe you only want to be in Tennessee for yours. Well, you can hit Tennessee, and then all the possibilities in Tennessee will be open for you. Or maybe you have grandparents who live in Missouri, and you would love to go spend the summer living there and working in Missouri. Well, you click on Missouri, and it'll give you those opportunities there. Or maybe you don't care where you are, but you know you want to work in trade, the Trade and Foreign Agriculture Service agency. Then you can click on that, and your application will go there. So you, as the potential intern, will self-direct who sees and evaluates your application. It's not something where we'll look at 1,000 applications and sort of meet them out. One goes here, one goes there, one goes there. You will self-select. So if you want to come to Washington, I suspect Washington will be very competitive to get chosen here, but there are lots of positions at headquarters. And so the opportunities will be greater in terms of how many slots there will be, but I'm sure it'll be very competitive. You can narrow it or expand it as small or as wide as you wish it to be. And this will happen again for fall, for spring, on and on and on. For those of you who are coming to Washington, we will plan enrichment activities that go along with it. Maybe a hearing on the Hill, maybe a career fair. For those of you who will be out in the field, we're working on enrichment activities where you'll be as well. They may be virtual at times, but don't worry, we're all working on those so that somebody who is in Wichita, Kansas, or in Minot, North Dakota, or in Jacksonville, Florida, does not feel left out of the program at all. That's not the purpose. So what I would stress to you is put a lot of effort into your cover letter and resume. Really highlight what you've done in the spheres that I talked about, in ag research, in ag communications, what events is your work ethic, your communication skills and your leadership skills, just like with any other resume and any other cover letter. And we really think that'll be a wonderful opportunity here. And again, all of our existing internship programs are there. All of our existing pathways programs are there. This is just an additional option, and it really highlights what we should be doing at the Department of Agriculture is investing in those who are going to take up the mantle in just a few short years, if not next year, if not one semester from now. The only other thing that I would add is you do have to have completed 1 year of whatever your program is. Trade and technical school, apprenticeship program, be it a undergraduate, whatever it is, you have to be completed your first year. So if you're a college freshman, you can't apply for summer because by the time you take up that internship, you will have completed your first year of school. So I hope you apply. If you have any questions, you can certainly get in touch with us here at USDA. To Lillian McFarland. We'll make sure that you have that information available. I highly encourage you to apply. And of course, if you get selected, I look forward to seeing you and meeting you. And if you don't get selected, don't let it be the only time you apply, because these will be every semester, and we certainly would like to welcome you in. But when you go on to usajobs.gov, when you go in the Department of Agriculture, look for one USDA internships between January 22nd and January 26th, that window of time for the summer. For the spring, for the fall, we'll let you know when it is, but it'll likely be early April when those go out. Now that's one segment. The second exciting thing, we know that not everyone can take off a semester. Not everyone's finances, their personal situation, their class schedule, their family life, whatever it might be, not everyone has the luxury of just dropping anchor in an internship in Washington or some other city for a semester. But we still want you to have access to what we do at USDA and how you can learn about what happens at USDA. So we are working on a shadowing program that will allow those of you who cannot come to do an internship for a semester, or maybe you want to see what it's all about before you apply later on. We're working on 3 to 5 times per year where we're going to have a formal shadowing program that may be 2 to 3 days in length, where you'll come to, most likely to Washington, although we may work on some other shadowings out in the nation, depending on where we have concentrations of people. You will shadow people who are very high within the structure of USDA, see what their day is like, ask questions, have access to them, be a part of enrichment programs. But you'll also get a career, like a career fair to go along with it. advice and counseling on your resume, interview skills, lunch and learn with members of the Secretary's cabinet here, sub-cabinet here, undersecretaries and whatnot. And it'll be a very bespoke, customized experience each time each shadowing opportunity, because who knows what will be happening in the spring or in the summer or in the fall or in the winter. So each one will take a flavor of its own. The point of this, though, is to give exposure and access to people who might not otherwise get to do internships, but still want to understand what's happening at USDA, understanding how ag policy is executed, how ag policy is made, how ag policy is considered, or how messages are given, and whatever it might be, communication, policy, budget, whatever it might be. So that's coming down the pike. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I do want to answer that question, because I know a lot of people rightly ask, look, I just can't come for an internship, or I live in rural fill in the blank location, and I can't go live a summer in our state capital where your state offices might be, or our state offices might be. And that's fair, because everyone's at a different point in life where they can or can't do something. We don't want to close any door for experience and what people might learn from the process. Excuse me. The third thing, and what we're equally excited about, is you may have seen me in particular at the AFA in Kansas City in November of early November this past year. I had a wonderful time there. I met so many of you. I still stay in touch with a number of you, and it was a wonderful experience. Well, we want to do that more, and we've already talked with your leadership about being involved at AFA's various conferences, conventions, workshops, and those kinds of things across the nation, and you're going to be hearing exciting things about that. But I would also say to you is you represent lots of campuses out across America. As you do things on your campus, if there's a way for USDA to be a part of that, we would love to, when and where appropriate, be a part of that. Now, what does that necessarily mean? Well, you may know that USDA is the only, I believe it's the only cabinet agency that literally has someone in every county in America. And we have state executive offices for rural development and farm service in every state in the union. And it's relatively important part of our job to be present at all things related to agriculture. So as your campuses have things like Ag Week, or if they have opportunities for career fairs, we want to make sure that USDA is involved with that when and where appropriate. We can't be everywhere for lots of different reasons. It could be budget, it could be policy time, it could be we just were there. But when and where we can, we would love to liaise with you and your campuses and make sure that we have a presence where it's important. So when you have Ag Week at your campus, well, by golly, if it's Ag Week, the Department of Agriculture for the United States of America should be represented. And if our state directors go and lead a workshop or a session or give you an update of what's happening at USDA, or if some of our career folks come and participate in a career expo, like you have seen them at other places, like, for instance, the FFA convention or places like that, you will certainly see that kind of presence across the nation on an increased level. We're serious about engaging with collegiate students, those of collegiate age, youth, at that point where they are. Not waiting until they're 25, 28, 30, 32, and are applying for a loan or putting in an RMA request for crop insurance, or trying to get a grant out of our Research and Education Economics Division. We're really serious about doing more now rather than waiting. So you'll be hearing more from Lily about how to put in requests for those sorts of scheduling events. And oftentimes, when our undersecretaries, for instance, go as part of their job function somewhere, maybe they're visiting a facility within their purview, maybe they're giving a speech elsewhere. There are all kinds of your campuses there. And so, it would be wonderful if they stopped by one of your campuses while they were in the neighborhood. But we don't just invite ourselves. I don't say this to ask for invitations. I just want you to know that the doors of the Department of Agriculture are open. And we certainly hope that you will avail yourselves of these opportunities because you all are not only the future, but the present. And we want to make sure that you have every possible arrow in your quiver that will prepare you professionally, from a business standpoint, intellectually, from a policy standpoint, to go out and, as the Secretary says often, to do right and to feed everyone. And that's our mission, to do right and to feed everyone. And I know that's where all of your hearts lie. A lot of people don't go into agriculture just because. It is a product of the head and the heart. And there's nothing more noble than feeding people and clothing people. So thank you for letting me give you a little bit of background of where we are. And I stand ready to have a conversation with you, Nancy.
Sounds great. Well, thank you, Chris. It's wonderful affirmation of the perspective that AFA looks to our young leaders that have signified their interest and their commitment to careers in food and agriculture, that they are the leaders today. And these type of experiences and exposures only accelerate their ability to contribute
Absolutely
to our great mission as an industry overall.
Absolutely.
So we're really excited about these internships and shadowing experiences that can add to those possibilities. If a student wants to learn more about the breadth of careers that they could consider through the work that USDA carries out, what's the best resource for them to look into?
Sure. Like any millennial or beyond millennial, probably the easiest place to look is on a digital platform, is to go to the web, is to go to the Department of Agriculture's website. And there are many of our websites that are in the process of being tweaked, revamped, those kinds of things to make them even more user-friendly. I think you'll be seeing some wonderful things come along that way. We're going to be building out an OPPE website and not too long that'll have a lot of this, that makes it a lot friendlier for this particular constituency to go in and find, instead of just going to USDA.gov and start shifting around everywhere looking for this, that, or the other. It will allow you to be more, I guess, more nimble in one search. But here's something I think is very important. It's really easy in today's world. It doesn't matter if you're 22 or 82. If you're a user of the web, it's really easy to just use a digital platform and then forget that really the greatest source of information and the greatest storytellers of what's out there are people. Mm-hmm. And so part of the reason that I mentioned that third thing about us being involved organically wherever people are is because that's the best way to answer. Instead of searching through a platform, if you're sitting down with somebody who is somebody in human resources at USDA, or somebody that who represents one of our areas, farm production, rural development, marketing and regulatory programs. If you have that conversation with them, you're going to get a much better feel of the breadth and the depth of careers that are out there. Now, obviously, USDA is not at every career fair. If you have a large college of agriculture, we are likely to be at those sorts of things. But what I would say is also, do not be afraid of contacting our Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement, and we will get you in touch with the right person. There are many people, and I know them personally, who have been more than willing to have an informational call for 5 or 10 minutes with a student who has questions about what is it like to work in fill in the blank, whatever that might be. And so part of this, the initiative is on the student. That pilot light has to be turned up to a high enough level of flame where they have the energy and the want to get it done themselves. Because the information's over here on this side, and we're happy to share. We just can't be in all places and all times. So that I would start digitally, but then literally seek out the people. And what will amaze you is I've heard anecdotal stories where students, not necessarily, well, sometimes college students, but I've heard middle school and high school students will interact with our state officers. They'll go to the state officer. They'll go to their local county FSA office or county NRCS or RD office and go in and have a conversation with the people who were there. You'd be surprised that even though they work in one sort of stream of USDA, you'd be very surprised at how many people have a depth and breadth knowledge of what goes on. And so I think that that's a very, very important thing to do about is look at the digital platform, but find ways you can make it personal to you. And then when you get the opportunity to interact with somebody, get their business card, follow up on that conversation, send them a note, call them, stay in touch, those sorts of things, because you never know when those networks will cross again and again. And that onus is on the person, on the student, to be able to do that.
Great, thank you. So because these internships aren't considered directly connected to a full-time position after completion of studies, what would you want those individuals who are very interested in full-time employment with USDA to know about these internships versus other career pathways that USDA offers, or how you plan to link information?
Absolutely. Great question. Very great question. And it's something I should have stressed. So these particular internships that we're talking about, they are what's called non-convertible. And in human resource parlance, what that really means is they are a standalone internship. You begin at a certain time. So for instance, in the summer, you and your supervisor, if you're selected, will pick a date that you start from one of 3 dates. I think it's 2 in May and 1 in June. And you'll pick a date that you end. I think there are 2 in August and 1 in September. And so you have a fixed start and you have a fixed end, and it doesn't go beyond the 4 squares of that sort of arrangement. So that is and it's non-convertible, meaning it does not give you any guarantee, right, or even possibility to move that position into full-time employment. It is a limited term. There are convertible positions within the stable of offerings that USDA has. There are certain pathways programs. You have to, for I think almost all of those, I don't have it right in front of me, for almost all of those, you have to have graduated. You might even have to have graduated with a graduate degree for some. So some of those you look specifically at the language within. So if you just went to usajobs.gov and put in USDA internships on January 22nd, you may get a whole panoply of offerings. Be careful and read what are convertible, what's not, what are the rules surrounding all of those kinds of things. Now for this one, obviously it's not convertible. But with any internship, it does not have to be at USDA. It does not have to be in a federal agency. It does not have to be in Washington, D.C. Private sector, NGO, public sector, it does not matter. The most important 2 things that you get out of an internship, if it's done properly, are real world experiential learning that ties your academic learning and theory to some sort of practical experience. You're doing it. You're getting dirt under your fingernails. You're understanding the rub between the theory and the reality. You're understanding how problems are solved in real and practical terms. That is an intangible but tangible at the same time benefit of being in an internship. It also means that somebody who sees you perform, and at USDA, at least in my shops, we believe in substantive internships. Interns do not just get busy work. They don't go get coffee for people. They're not putting paper clips on things and stapling. They're doing legitimate project work, if not beyond that. So that also allows me as a supervisor to write a more robust recommendation, to pick up the phone and say, John or Sally did the following great things. Once you do look for full-time employment, wherever it might be, or you look for graduate school admission, wherever it might be. But the second thing that these internships do is, if they're done well, and this is on you more than it is on anybody else, is it should develop your network. It should enhance your network. Now, it's on us to give you the opportunities to do so. It's on you to take those opportunities and take advantage of them. Some people, particularly in agriculture, we tend to be a modest, humble lot, right? That's just how we were raised. And you don't toot your own horn. You don't get out in front of the harvest, so to speak. You are very modest in the way you think, the way you present yourself, the way you approach life, and the way you live. But sometimes you have to be in a situation where you're looking for a job or full-time employment. You have to be a little bit of a salesperson, right? You have to package yourself and your skills, not in a false way, not in an offensive way, not in a way to affront somebody else. You just have to be confident in your own skills. Well, part of that is confident in how you develop a network. If you have an internship with us, you will, beyond any shadow of a doubt, have the opportunity to meet great and wonderful leaders who are career civil servants, who are people who have been appointed to their positions, and all of whom, though, share a passion for what we're doing. And it would behoove you to take care, nurture, water, and grow that network. so that when you do graduate and you are looking for full-time career opportunities, you can you will have an opportunity to have someone place a recommendation for you, write a letter of recommendation, consider you for a job that may not otherwise know much about you. And it looks really positive on one's resume and in one's cover letter when you can detail the real and substantive work that you've done somewhere, particularly within the Department of Agriculture. And even if you don't want to, I should say, even if you don't want to come to USDA as a full-time employment, which is great because there are thousands of other career opportunities. We need people to be everywhere. But when you have had experience here and you want to go and work for a Cargill or a John Deere or a Monsanto, or you want to go have your own small farm of 10 acres somewhere, or you want to go become a research veterinarian in an animal science program somewhere, you take those skills you learned at USDA, but more importantly, you take the knowledge of how USDA works and you transport that, and that makes you a more valuable professional because you have a deeper, a more holistic understanding of how this department works, how the units of it work together, and how it fits in the broader quilt and fabric of the federal government itself. So I think that while this position itself is not convertible, it has a lot of strong and wonderful selling points to it.
Great. With that said, what do you see as the greatest benefit to USDA and the young professionals through these new opportunities?
Well, for USDA, it's quite obvious. I mean, when interns come in and they're given significant work and responsibility, the best thing is it's an infusion of new ways of thinking, of new ideas, of excitement, of energy. It's people who think about reaching audiences in different ways. We have interns right now in our OPP office, in our communications office, and they challenge in the best possible way. They challenge paradigms, old ways of thinking and doing things. Does it mean that everything shifts off its foundation immediately? No. Does it even mean that it shifts off its foundation gradually? Maybe not. But what it does do is it creates a different energy that swirls about meetings, planning, work itself. So we are always excited when that happens. The second thing that benefits USDA is obviously it fulfills part of our public mission, and that's to not only help clothe and feed the world, and not only to be the best managed, the best and most efficient run cabinet agency, the most customer focused cabinet agency, but to invest not dollars and cents, although we certainly do dollars and cents in different places, but to invest time, energy, sweat equity into those individuals who are very shortly going to be leaders within the agricultural world. That is a very worthwhile investment of one's resources to do that. On the student side, I think I've detailed some of those. Obviously, it's building your network, it's building your professional skills. But I also think that, now this is me personally talking here, I think that all of us have a civic rent that we pay at some point in time, or should pay. That all of us have an opportunity to give back. Some people do it through a life in public service. Some people do it through a season in public service. Some people do it through public service touch points along the way, serving on a council or chairing a committee or being in a service organization. Some people, it's in the family that they raise and producing, training, equipping their children to be young men and women who become productive members of society a generation from now. All of that's part of our civic rent. And so when an intern moves into the public sphere like this, they have the opportunity to give back to something bigger than themselves and greater than themselves. And that's the notion of this nation, the republic, this whole country. And And I think that's a very powerful thing because these interns take the exact same oath that I take, that you pledge and swear that you will uphold, protect, and uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I'll bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And that's a powerful moment when your hand is up and you're saying, I'm pledging to defend, to protect this Constitution. Well, when you stop and think about that, and I don't want to put too fine a point on it. I don't want to become, maudlin about it and have violins playing in the background and the soundtrack of it. But there's something very powerful about the moment you stand in front of a flag and you swear that oath and realize that thousands of people have sworn it before, including those who have worn the uniform of this country. And it goes back on an arc all the way to those people who were brave enough to sign their document, sign their name to a document on a piece of parchment in 1776, and even before then. And that while we don't get everything right in the United States, and there's a long and very documented history of our own original sins within the United States and things that we don't get right, that this grand experiment is one that's worthy of being of participation in. That it's worthy to even for a season of our lives to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves. And I hope for those of you who are listening, I hope that doesn't sound so idealistic to be, again, almost sappy or syrupy. But I think that there is something about people who want to go into agriculture, no matter what they do, they already have, in some ways, whether they realize it or not, that sort of mindset. There is nothing that takes greater faith in the world of American commerce than a farmer going and planting a seed every spring and hoping and praying that that seed turns a harvest. That you don't know at the end of the year whether or not you're going to turn a profit because you don't know how much rain you're going to get and if there's going to be enough in the irrigation ditches if you don't get enough rain, or the ponds or the reservoir, or wherever you're drawing from. You don't know what the weather is going to hold out. You don't know if there's going to be storms that come. You don't know if the seed was necessarily bad or good. You don't know what kind of bugs or predators may come into your fields or ranch lands. You don't know any of that, but you take it on faith, and you take it in the abilities that you put forth, people around you to help tend to the growing harvest, that something good's going to turn out from it. Well, every day that you come to work in a public setting, and again, even if it's for a season, you do the same thing because you know that you're helping those women and men who tend to the land, grow things, research things, communicate things, and make the policies and procedures so that farmers, ranchers, foresters, producers can go about their job of feeding and clothing the world. That's very powerful. That's a very powerful thing. And I don't think even a lot of people who are at USDA, myself included, really fully take stock of that until they do take their oath. And they do step back and say, gosh, that's pretty doggone powerful. So that's what I would call the cosmic benefit. We've already touched on the tangible, real benefits of growing a network, getting professional experience that really shines on a resume, honing communication and other skills, research, depending on where you are. Those are tangible, but a good internship, no matter where it is, will do all of those things. There's something very special about being in an internship in the public sphere where you are working for your fellow citizens every day. That's powerful.
Thanks. Well, it is wonderful that some of the things I've heard you express for this internship program is really what AFA looks for in those that apply to our programs as well, is your ability to share your passion for and commitment to food and agriculture and demonstrate the talents that you have to contribute in that field in that way as well. And so what I've taken is, certainly students, whether they had that background in agriculture or came to it in some other way, that's what you're looking for in them to express in their application for these opportunities.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely.
Great. Well, as we close today, I know we're going to reinforce that those that are watching this can ask questions that after the fact through the social channels that we that we share, and there will be more information on USDA's website and jobs websites going forward. But is there anything else you'd like to share as we close today?
I would just say this: for those of you who are in the excuse me, who are a part of the AFA family, what's powerful about where you're positioned to me, two things. Number one, you have already made up your mind that in some way, shape, or form, agriculture is going to be part of your life, your career path, your professional path, and whatever it might be, from research and development to production agriculture to food safety to nutrition to forestry to research and development, whatever it might be. But the second and equally powerful piece of it is that somebody else sees that conviction within you, and that somebody else recognizes not the leadership potential in you, but recognizes that you are a leader. And I think that's a very important distinction, because leadership is something that can be made in somebody. And those persons who are growing as leaders, you constantly grow as leaders. Doesn't matter if you're 20, 40, 60, or 80. No one has arrived. And so we all grow as a leader. We all grow in how we manage people, how we articulate our vision, how we think about the future, how we put goals before our teams, how we demonstrate ethical and moral leadership. But I think what's important about AFA is that you who are a part of it, you aren't just aspiring leaders. This isn't a leadership potential. You are leaders. And I think you don't even have to put an adjective in front of it. And I think that says a lot about where your life trajectory is. One, you've made a commitment. And two, somebody has recognized that commitment. And that's a powerful combination. Mm-hmm. And so what I would say, though, is because you have made that a commitment and others see it, now is the incumbency of doing something with it. Because a commitment, and then a recognition of the conviction, that's only getting the ball to a certain place down the field. Because there are a lot of people who have said they want to do something, and they even have the bona fides around it that look like they're doing something. Well, the last thing to do is to move that ball down the field. Now, will you ever cross the goal line? I think that's a great philosophy question to debate. I once told people I never want to know what I want to be when I grow up, because when I figure out what I want to be when I grow up, I stop growing. I reach a point of sort of maximum intellectual curiosity, and beyond that, nothing else happens. Mm-hmm. So what I would say to you is, now that you've determined this is where you want to go, even though you don't have to know fully what you want to be when you grow up, and I really hope a lot of you don't know what you want to be, because sometimes you'll miss opportunities along the way. But you know where your heart is, right? And others have seen that heart and what it means, and they've seen that passion. Now, this internship, this opportunity to liaise with USDA, this opportunity to grow your network, but anything in the same space, that's where you start moving that passion and commitment and conviction into concrete things that will put your life on a continued trajectory, not only to be an outstanding professional, not only to be an outstanding leader, but maybe more important than everything, be an outstanding citizen. And so I want to thank you for your time. You have our commitment that we are going to be engaged with young people across the nation. More to the point, we can't afford not to be, if I'm just being blunt about it, because we all know the statistics of aging farmers. And even though the sort of 25 to 34 group of farmers have increased in the last couple of years, it's not enough to supplant an aging farm population. But that's also true as we look around at who's doing the research, and who's doing the development, and who's doing the business, and who's doing the application, and who's doing the communicating and telling the true story of what's happening in American agriculture, not just to the world, but within the borders of the U.S., to tell about the good stuff that we all do. So I would just admonish you to look at it that way and to share the Secretary's vision that nothing is more noble than feeding and clothing people. But that means that we do have to do right among one another and do what is right as we look to feed the world. So thank you for your time. And I look forward to intersecting with you in Washington or around the United States.
Thank you, Chris. We certainly look forward to sharing these internship and shadowing opportunities with those that we work with, and having USDA represented, and even more so in the variety of programs and events that we host for young men and women.